Hey everybody, it's James Lindsay. You're listening to New Discourses Bullets, where I give a kind of short bullet point-like summary of a single topic from Woke Marxism that we need to understand so we can stop it. And I've got a bitter pill for everyone today, unfortunately. I don't want anybody to take this personally. I don't want anybody to think I'm thinking of them. I've seen about half a dozen examples in the past few weeks, and I think it's just a big enough deal where I'm going to have to talk about it in general, so don't think I'm talking about you. If you think I'm talking about you, I'm probably not. This is a systemic problem on the anti-woke or anti-communist side, and I've got to say something about it, unfortunately. So it sounds like I'm going to be dressing some people down, but I'm not. It's everybody. I'm dressing everybody down. Everybody but me. Just kidding, of course. So the bitter pill is that if you want to be on the front lines of this battle for our society, and I hope you do. I hope you're willing to take those risks and accept those challenges and get involved. We need as many as possible. So this is not meant, most importantly, to discourage you. There's a bitter pill involved. And I've said this in, I don't know, probably over 100 of my public talks. I have to give you the bad news, guys. If you want to fight this, unless the way you want to fight is to stand on the sidelines and throw money and support into the ring, if you want to get directly involved, which we need lots of people doing that, and I hope it's you, you're going to have to do some homework. You have to do your homework. You have to learn a little bit of this woke stuff. You have to learn a little bit of their language. But at the very bottom, you've got to be able to answer some really basic questions that you can predict are going to be thrown at you. The left operates in very large part by trying to discredit its opponents, to make them look as though they aren't qualified, that they're somehow not worthy of being taken seriously or listened to. And in the past, I've outlined 3 ways that they do that in primary. They try to discredit people's intellectual status. They try, which is, I say, to undermine their intellectual authority, meaning you're somebody who's too dumb to be listened to. You don't even know what you're talking about. They also try to undermine people's moral authority. You're too bad of a person. You're a racist or a transphobe or something icky and awful, conspiracy theorist or something. Actually, conspiracy theorist is not in this category. It's in the next one. You're too bad of a person to take seriously. You're just some kind of a deplorable. And third, they try to undermine your psychological authority. They try to paint you as crazy, a conspiracy theorist, or a lunatic, or unhinged. We could go through the laundry list of words that I got called. I'm off the rails. I don't know how long I've been off the rails. I don't remember coming off the rails. I think I actually looked down and saw the rails for the first time and realized what was going on, but that makes you look awfully crazy to people who are unwilling to admit what's there. But that's not my point. My point is that the left proceeds in many cases through a relentless activism, a subversive activism of undermining your psychological, moral, and intellectual authority so that you are not credible. So this is important enough to mention again, even though I've talked about how it works before. Who they are undermining your authority with is not just the watching audience. And it's not just your peer group, your circle of friends, it's also yourself. So those are the 3 targets of this project. Number 1, they want other people not to listen to you if you are saying things that are correct. They don't want that. So you must be framed as dumb, evil, or crazy. Secondly, they want your peer group to turn on you. They want your peer group to do a struggle session on you. They want your peer group to tell you that what you're saying doesn't have evidence. It's way out of line. You don't actually know what you're talking about. Back off. They want your friends to think, well, what you did say could come off as a little bit racist. So it was kind of a little bit racist. So I don't really want to be seen with you. And they want you to be your friends to perceive you as crazy, because they're not going to defend crazy stuff. What they'll do is they'll go on social media if they're kind of your friend and they've accused you of being crazy. And what you'll have these people do, believe me, I've been through this, what you'll see these people do is say, well, I think that James Lindsay is really kind of off his rocker, but when he says this thing, at least he's okay, or something to that effect. Or I don't want to defend James since he lost his mind, but blah, blah, blah. And so you'll see a lot of that kind of like half-hearted defense. But also they're trying to get you to undermine your intellectual, moral, and psychological authority in yourself. And that's actually one of the most important targets of this. It's extremely valuable if they can get you to doubt yourself. Maybe I don't really know this that well. Maybe I should quit. Maybe I did do a transphobia. Maybe I'm hurting people. Maybe I'm a bad person. Maybe I should quit. Maybe I am getting kind of wrapped up in tinfoil hat territory and believing crazy things, and I should reel it in and I should quit. See how it works? If they can get you to doubt yourself, you will censor yourself and may even take yourself out of the fight. If they can get your friends to see you as inferior in terms of your intellect, your moral standing, or your psychology, then they can get those people to turn on you and socially pressure you. And if they can get the masses, so to speak, out there to believe any of those things about you, they'll get them not to listen to you. And one of the most effective ways that they can possibly undermine you is when you have just made a statement. Remember, we're focusing on people who are getting out there and doing things, which, once again, I encourage you, even if you are not, to start, and if you are, to continue. They're going to catch you, though, at the end of your presentation, at the end of your talk, while you're out at a public rally or a march, when you show up to go to a Trump event and you're outside, and CNN is going to be standing there, and they're going to interview you, and they're going to ask you a question like, can you define woke? Or, well, you say that we're not a democracy in the United States, we're a republic. What's the difference? Those are two very specific questions that I've run into recently that people got caught flat-footed with, right? What does woke mean? Go ahead, just define it for us. And the thing is a lot of people can't do it. They can't simply say, woke means having a critical consciousness. Critical consciousness means believing that our social environment is contoured by illegitimate power structures that need to be identified, exposed, and denounced. That's what woke means. That's what you've woke up to. When you wake up, you have critical consciousness. And the reason they can't say that answer is because they haven't done their homework. They went out and talked about something without having got their basics nailed down. And it's very important that you be able to get your basics nailed down so that when you get caught on these things, it disarms these people. You shouldn't be sitting there thinking, wow, I wish James Lindsay could have showed up and answered this question. He would have showed him. No, you've got to be that person. You've got to do it. You're the one who's out there. You're the one who's wherever. You're the one who's going to have to be able to answer these questions. So I encourage you to think, and I'll help. Mea culpa. Maybe I haven't done enough. I will help by trying to produce basic resources, not just this podcast, that address these questions and explain these answers. You don't have to have a long, thorough academic answer. What's the difference between a democracy and a republic? Well, a republic might use democratic means in order to elect representatives, but the actual functional decisions of the political apparatus are made by representatives, not by direct popular vote. And those representatives are distributed in various ways with different checks and balances on their power so that there is no capacity for a worked up majority or a worked up mob of people to determine what the outcome is. And that's a basic answer. That doesn't even get into the way that communists throughout history have defined democracy, which is actually accurate to what Plato meant by it, but what that boils down to is that they define who counts as people, and then it's the voice of the people. And if who counts as people are the people who support democracy. In other words, we would call them Democrats, or what they would call themselves are communists. Communists believe communist theory, so communists have a communist soul, so communists are people, and nobody else is, because those other people are infected by those evil power structures, which is the exact same. Marx called them historical conditions. We call them systemic power in the woke days, but they're the same thing. They materially or structurally or systemically determine your character and who you are, and thus whether or not you qualify as a fully enfranchised person. So that's a more detailed answer, but there are lots of questions of this kind. If you're going to fight back against the woke and you're going to make these kind of bold statements, you need to have some basic answers. If you're going to say that's not climate change, that's weather, and somebody says, what's the difference? You might be on the spot to provide at least a quick definition about the difference between climate and weather. If you can't do that, either you need to Well, you need to just go do your homework because we need people talking about it. I was going to say either you need to stop talking about it. I don't want you to stop talking about it. I want you to go do your homework. I want you to think about the things that you say, many of which are things that you're inheriting from other people who have said them and that you are repeating, not quite as a slogan, but close. And sometimes it is maybe a slogan. And you need to dive into them. So take a little bit of time to think of the kinds of basic questions. Feel free to send them to me and I will try to find ways to answer them. I won't think of them all. I've given you a couple of examples here, but do take seriously your homework. If you're going to call, for example, if you're going to call the queer educators in our schools doing comprehensive sexuality education using social emotional learning and culturally relevant teaching and critical pedagogy, if you're going to call those people groomers, which maybe sometimes you should, especially now, you better be able to back that up. You had better be able to explain exactly what you mean by grooming. And you better be able to explain ideological grooming in particular. And in fact, you might want to be talking at least a little bit conversantly about thought reform, because that's really what it is. And if you don't say, well, what do you mean by groomer? Well, I mean, they're doing thought reform. Well, what's thought reform? And if you stall out there, you didn't do your homework. You have to do your homework. So that's the point of this episode. Please get involved. And as you get involved, get interested, do your homework, and make it so that when they try to put you on the spot, that you have answers that actually take the wind out of their sails. Make the point so well. And you don't have to know a ton, but just know some basic answers. Do your homework. Read about this stuff a little bit to keep up on this and make sure, do like if you're actively coming out fighting against this stuff, like do flashcards. Like seriously, get together at your have meetings with your book club or your friends or your local chapter or whatever. Do flashcards and like literally prepare to be able to answer these questions with adequate answers. And if you don't know what adequate answers look like, you're going to have to be very cautious, because the left's goal, again, is to discredit the counter movement by saying it doesn't know what it's talking about. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to get man on the street video or a question and answer where you've spoken, and they're going to bomb you with a question, and then they're going to run rampant with that video. It's going to go viral. If it gets on TV, like with the CNN examples, they will bring in an expert who will explain in very clear terms under studio settings and very calm and thought through language about how you're not only wrong, but you're probably crazy and you might have evil intentions. So you're intellectually, morally, and psychologically inferior. And they can all be beaten just by adopting an attitude that if you're going to go speak up on these issues, you're going to have to be educated on them. It turns out that yes, common sense is enough to navigate the world, and it is the right answer, but it takes more to take these people off their guard and to expose what they're doing. So if anything that I say, like if you say, the issue is never the issue is always a revolution. Here's an example. That's a great example. I hear that said back to me all the time, and people say it wrong. That means they didn't get it. Say it right, figure out what it means, and be able to answer a question about it if you get it. Well, what does that mean? It means that they aren't focusing on the issue itself. The issue is a prop that they're using to advance a different agenda, and that different agenda is to gain power for themselves so they can effect their revolution to transform society. You've got to be able to think through what you are saying or what they have said or whatever, and put smart legs under it for when you get asked these questions. So I'll just close out by saying it 3 times, because that's how you do great teaching and make people learn things. Do your homework. Do your homework. Please do your homework.